All right, so today we're diving deep into a topic that I know a lot of you are eager to learn more about, building a solid emergency fund.
Yeah, it's something that pretty much everyone knows they should have, right?
Absolutely. And we're going to explore not only why it's so important, but also unpack a clear step-by-step approach for making it happen.
Yeah.
And for this deep dive, we're drawing on some fantastic resources that you've all shared with us. So let's get right into it.
Okay, sounds good.
So, we talk a lot about financial stability and reaching those financial goals. And an emergency fund, it seems like, is often seen as kind of a starting point, right? Like a foundation.
Yeah, it's definitely a crucial piece of the puzzle, and actually it's interesting because it's not necessarily the very first step.
Oh, okay. So where does it fit in the grand scheme of things?
So there's the system often referred to as like baby steps for achieving financial stability.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and building an emergency fund is actually step 3 in that system.
Step three. Okay, so what are the first two steps before we dive into the emergency fund?
Well, we can definitely explore those in another deep dive, but for now, let's focus on this step 3, which is all about accumulating 3 to 6 months worth of essential living expenses.
3 to 6 months. Okay, so that's quite a range, right?
Yeah, it is. It's all about tailoring the plan to your individual situation.
Okay, that makes sense. So for someone who maybe has a really stable job, dual income household, 3 months might be sufficient.
Exactly. Yeah, like if you have a very predictable income stream, 3 months worth of expenses might be enough to cover most unexpected events.
Makes sense. But if you're maybe self-employed or, rely on a single income, 6 months provides that extra buffer.
Precisely, yeah. For those with less predictable incomes, that 6-month buffer offers a greater sense of security.
Got it. So let's say our listener, are listening right now, they want to figure out, okay, how much do I actually need to save? What's the first step?
First step is taking a close look at your monthly expenses. But the key here is to focus on the essentials.
Essentials. Okay, so
Uh,
so not, those fun little splurges or those little extra things.
Not yet. No, we're talking about the bare bones here, the things you absolutely need to survive each month.
Okay, so like rent or mortgage payments, got to have a roof over your head.
Exactly. That's a big one. And then utilities, keeping the lights on, water running.
Groceries, of course, got to eat.
Transportation costs, getting to work or getting around town.
And then any minimum debt payments that you have.
Absolutely. Can't forget about those.
Okay, so basically if our budget was like stripped down to the bare minimum, like what would we absolutely need to survive?
Exactly. Once you have that number, you multiply it by 3 or 6, depending on your circumstances, and that gives you your target emergency fund amount.
Okay, let's say for a listener, let's say they determine their essential monthly expenses are $2,500.
Okay.
So that means their emergency fund should be somewhere between $7,500 and $15,000.
Yeah, God, that's the range they should be aiming for.
Okay, that feels manageable when you break it down like that.
It definitely can be. And here's something that's really interesting, especially if you've already been working on paying down debt,
Okay.
all that money you were diligently putting towards debt.
Yeah.
You can now channel that same dedication and discipline into building your emergency fund.
So it's like repurposing that financial momentum instead of throwing money at debt, you're directing it towards your own peace of mind.
Precisely. You're essentially paying yourself first.
I like that. Okay, so let's say you were paying $500 a month towards debt. If you redirected that same amount to your emergency fund, you could hit that $7,500 target in just 15 months.
That's right. You're already in the habit of setting aside that money. Now you're just changing its destination.
Makes sense.
Uh,
Okay, so we figured out our target amount. We've, tapped into our inner financial ninja. What's next? Choosing the right account, right?
Absolutely. When it comes to your emergency fund, liquidity and accessibility are paramount.
Okay, so explain what you mean by that, because I think a lot of people get confused about, where to actually keep this money.
You want to be able to access your funds quickly and easily if an unexpected situation arises, right?
Right, because it's an emergency.
Exactly. So we're not talking about investing it in the stock market or anything like that.
Okay, got it.
That's why high-yield savings accounts or money market accounts are generally excellent options.
Okay, so they offer a decent return on your savings, but you can still access the money quickly if you need it.
Precisely. And while we're on the topic of where not to put your emergency fund,
Oh, okay, lay it on me.
it's crucial to avoid tying up this money in investments or certificates of deposit or CDs.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that before. Why is that?
Well, while those might offer the potential for higher returns,
Right, yeah, got to chase those returns,
it often come with restrictions or penalties for early withdrawals.
which kind of defeats the purpose of having an emergency fund.
Exactly. You need that money to be readily available.
Okay, that's a really important point, and I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up, right? Because they see those potentially higher returns and they think, "Oh, I can make my money work harder while it's just sitting there."
Yeah, I get that, but that's not the goal of an emergency fund.
Right? The goal is to have it there when you need it.
Exactly. It's about peace of mind and security, not maximizing returns.
Okay, so we've chosen the right account. What's next?
Now let's talk about one of my favorite tools for building financial discipline: automation.
Ooh, I love automation. Tell me more.
Setting up automatic transfers to your emergency fund is like putting your savings on autopilot.
Okay, so instead of rely on willpower, you're making the process seamless and consistent.
Precisely, you're taking the emotion and decision making out of the equation.
I love that. Okay, so how do we approach setting up these automatic transfers?
The day after payday is a great option.
Oh, okay, I like that.
Set up a recurring transfer for a specific amount that aligns with your savings goals.
So it's like you never even see the money. It just magically appears in your emergency fund.
Precisely, and that's the beauty of automation. It takes the guesswork out of saving.
Okay, so we've chosen the right account. We've automated our savings. What's next? Do we just sit back and watch our emergency fund grow?
We could, but there's one more crucial element to consider, and that's speed.
Speed. Okay, so we're not just talking about like, slow and steady wins the race here. We want to try to build this thing up as quickly as possible.
The faster you build your emergency fund, the sooner you'll have that financial security blanket in place.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? What are some areas where we could potentially cut back even temporarily to turbocharge our savings rate?
That's a great question, and it's one that requires a bit of self-reflection.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with this, especially if they feel like they're already living on a tight budget.
I hear that a lot, and it's definitely a challenge, but I think the first step is to really examine your spending habits.
Okay, so for our listener, let's brainstorm some areas where they might be able to free up some cash. What are your thoughts?
I think a lot of people overlook those small, everyday expenses that can really add up over time.
Oh, yeah, those little things you don't even think about.
Exactly, like that daily coffee habit,
Oh, yeah.
or those subscription services you barely use, or even those impulse buys at the checkout counter.
Oh, those get me every time, those little snacks and
I
things.
know, right? They seem insignificant in the moment, but they can really drain your funds without you even realizing it.
It's like death by a thousand cuts.
Precisely. And here's a tip that I found can make a big difference. Try the cash envelope method for discretionary spending.
Cash envelope method. Okay, tell me more about that.
So basically, you decide how much you can comfortably spend each week on things like entertainment, dining out, or personal care,
Okay,
and you put that amount of cash in an envelope.
literally an envelope.
Literally an envelope, old school style.
I love it.
And once the money's gone, it's gone.
Oh, so you're giving yourself a visual reminder of your spending limits.
Exactly. It helps you become more mindful of where your money's going.
That's a great idea. I might have to try that one. Now, I know you're a big advocate for budgeting,
Always.
but I've heard some people say that budgeting is too restrictive or time consuming. What are your thoughts on that?
I understand the hesitation, but I think the key is finding a budgeting method that works for you and your lifestyle.
Okay, so like there's no one size fits all approach.
Exactly. There are tons of different approaches out there, from the traditional pen and paper method
Yeah.
to sophisticated budgeting apps.
Yeah, there's so many apps out there these days.
Exactly. Experiment until you find one that fits your personality and helps you stay organized.
So it's not about depriving yourself. It's about being intentional with your money and making sure it's aligned with your priorities.
Exactly. And remember, budgeting isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process.
Right. It's about checking in with yourself and making adjustments as needed.
Precisely. It's about staying engaged with your finances.
Okay, so we've talked about trimming the fat in our budgets and becoming more mindful of those sneaky expenses. But what about increasing our income?
That's a great point. I mean, that's got to be a faster way to reach your savings goals, right?
It seems like it would be.
And the good news is there are more opportunities than ever to generate extra income.
Oh, really? Like what?
I mean, the gig economy is booming. Have you considered things like freelance work,
Oh, yeah. Freelance is huge these days.
online tutoring, virtual assisting?
So many options.
There's a ton of stuff out there. Or maybe you have a hobby you could monetize,
Oh, yeah. Like what?
like crafting, photography, baking.
Turn your passion into profit.
Exactly.
I've actually been thinking about offering some freelance writing services on the side. I've always enjoyed writing, and it could be a great way to earn some extra cash.
I love that. And it's a perfect example of how you can leverage your skills and interests to create additional income streams.
Yeah, make that money work for you. And don't forget about the power of decluttering.
Oh, yes. One person's trash is another person's treasure.
Exactly. What are we holding on to that we could be turning into cash?
Right. Selling items you no longer use or need is a fantastic way to declutter your space and add a little boost to your emergency fund.
And those online platforms make it so easy these days to sell things.
So easy clothes, electronics, furniture, you name it.
It's like a virtual garage sale.
Exactly. And speaking of extra cash, let's talk about found money.
Found money. What's that?
Those unexpected windfalls that come our way every now and then.
Oh, okay.
Tax refunds, bonuses, gifts from generous relatives.
Instead of letting that money disappear into everyday expenses.
Direct it straight to your emergency fund.
Oh, I love that it's like finding a $20 bill in your pocket, except this time it's going towards your financial security instead of an impulse purchase.
Exactly. It's like a little bonus for your savings.
Okay, so we've got budgeting down, we're exploring side hustles, and we're ready to turn our clutter into cash. What other brilliant strategies do you have up your sleeve?
Let's talk about embracing a more minimalist lifestyle.
Minimalist.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
I mean, if you're willing to make some temporary sacrifices, the savings can be significant.
Okay, like
Right.
what kind of sacrifices are we talking about?
Well, think about things like meal prepping and eating at home instead of dining out.
Okay, yeah, that can definitely add up.
Finding free or low-cost entertainment options like parks, museums, libraries.
So getting creative with your entertainment.
Exactly. And even pausing those non-essential subscription services.
Oh, yeah, like those streaming platforms.
Or gym memberships you're not fully utilizing.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't completely give up dining out, but you reduce it to once a week instead of 3 times.
Exactly. Or you find a workout buddy and exercise outdoors instead of paying for a gym membership.
Right. It's about finding those areas where you can make adjustments without feeling deprived.
Exactly. You can still enjoy life. Just make a few tweaks here and there.
And what about negotiating bills? Is that something our listeners should consider?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to negotiate with your service providers.
So like call up my internet company and see if they can give me a better deal.
Exactly. Or your cell phone company, even your insurance company.
Oh, wow. I never thought about negotiating with my insurance company.
You might be surprised at how much you can save just by asking.
So it's like a mini side hustle, except you're saving money instead of earning it.
I like that way of putting it. And another big one is delaying large purchases.
Oh, yeah, that new car, that fancy vacation.
Exactly. If you can hold off on those things for a while, you can redirect those funds towards your emergency fund and reach your goal much faster.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from budgeting and side hustles to decluttering and negotiating bills. I'm feeling inspired. But I think it's important to acknowledge that saving isn't always easy. It can be a mental game. What are your thoughts on staying motivated and keeping that savings momentum going?
Motivation is key. And one strategy I find incredibly effective is visualizing your progress.
Okay, so like creating a visual representation of your savings goal.
Exactly. Whether you use a budgeting app that tracks your savings or create a good old-fashioned chart,
Yeah,
seeing how far you've come and how close you are to your goal can be incredibly motivating.
I've heard of people creating thermometer charts to track their savings progress.
I love that it's like filling up a thermometer as you get closer to your goal.
Yeah, and it's fun too.
And don't forget to celebrate those milestones along the way.
Ooh, celebrations. I like that.
Reaching $1,000 in your emergency fund, celebrate.
$5,000, celebrate again.
More champagne.
It's about acknowledging your progress and rewarding yourself for your hard work.
So it's like turning the saving process into a game with rewards and celebrations along the way.
Exactly. Make it fun and engaging.
Okay, and I think, another thing that's important to remember is that, saving isn't just about the numbers. It's about creating a sense of security and freedom in your life.
Absolutely. It's about reducing stress and giving yourself more options in the future.
So keep reminding yourself why you're doing this. Write down your reasons for saving. Post those reminders where you'll see them every day.
Like on your bathroom mirror or your refrigerator.
Exactly. Keep those goals top of mind.
Now let's talk about those moments when temptation strikes. That urge to splurge on something you don't really need. What are your go-to strategies for resisting those spending impulses?
One tactic that can be surprisingly effective is using cash instead of credit or debit cards for your daily expenses.
Okay, so like actually seeing the money leaving your wallet.
Exactly. It makes you much more mindful of your spending habits.
Yeah, it's like a built-in accountability system.
Precisely. Another tip is to implement a waiting period for any non-essential purchases.
Okay, so if I find myself tempted to buy something I don't absolutely need.
Give yourself a day or two to think it over. Often that initial impulse will fade, and you'll realize you didn't really need it after all.
Oh, that's so true. I've done that before, and then I completely forget about whatever it was I was going to buy.
Exactly. And I think unsubscribing from those tempting promotional emails and social media ads can also make a big difference.
Oh yeah, those are dangerous.
They're constantly tempting you with things you don't need.
So removing those triggers can help you stay focused on your goals.
Exactly. And here's a tip that might sound counterintuitive. Reward yourself.
Reward myself, but I thought we were trying to save money.
Not with big splurges, but with small, meaningful rewards that align with your values and don't derail your progress.
Okay, so maybe it's a relaxing bath with essential oils instead of a shopping spree.
Exactly. Or a picnic in the park instead of an expensive dinner out.
Right. It's about finding ways to enjoy life without breaking the bank.
Exactly. And remember all that momentum you built up while paying off debt.
Yeah.
Keep that same energy and discipline going as you build your emergency fund.
Treat it with the same urgency and focus.
Exactly. This is a
Huh.
priority.
Okay, let's imagine we've implemented all these fantastic strategies, reached our emergency fund goal, and are feeling financially secure and amazing. What's next? What do we do with this beautiful pile of savings?
First of all, celebrate.
Of course.
You've achieved something truly significant, but then
Yeah.
leave it alone. Your emergency fund has a very specific purpose,
Okay.
and it's not to be used for everyday expenses or those tempting wants that inevitably pop up.
So resist the urge to treat it like a slush fund.
Exactly. It's there for true emergencies, not for convenience or impulse buys.
Yeah.
Keep it separate from your regular checking account, maybe even in a different bank altogether, to reduce temptation.
Okay, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. And I know we've mainly focused on building that initial emergency fund,
Right.
but I'm curious, once you've reached that goal, do you just stop saving?
That's a great question because, it's like, okay, I hit my goal now. What?
Well, while having a fully funded emergency fund is a major accomplishment, it's not the end of your savings journey.
Oh, so it's just the beginning.
In fact, it's just the beginning.
Okay, so what comes next? Do we just keep adding to our emergency fund indefinitely?
There are actually a few different approaches you can take.
Okay.
Some financial experts recommend continuing to build your emergency fund beyond the initial 3 to 6 months worth of expenses,
Okay, so like maybe building it up to 9 months or a year.
especially if you have dependents or anticipate potential fluctuations in your income.
So for someone who's self-employed or works in a field that's prone to layoffs, having a larger emergency fund could provide an even greater sense of security.
Exactly. It's about tailoring your savings plan to your specific circumstances. And another option is to start allocating some of your savings towards other financial goals,
Oh, okay, like what kind of goals?
like investing for retirement or saving for a down payment on a house.
So we're not just stockpiling cash indefinitely. We're strategically allocating our savings towards different goals.
Precisely. And the beauty of having a solid emergency fund is that it gives you the flexibility and peace of mind to pursue those other goals without worrying about being derailed by unexpected events.
Like you've got that foundation in place so you can start building the rest of your financial house.
Exactly. It's all about creating a solid financial future.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Hmm.
We've talked about everything from budgeting and side hustles to the psychology of saving and what to do once you've reached your emergency fund goal.
It's been a comprehensive deep dive.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, and that's the psychological benefits of having an emergency fund. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in, like the numbers and think of an emergency fund as just like a pile of money sitting in a bank account.
Right. It's more than just a number.
But it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the less tangible but equally important benefits of having that financial safety net?
Yeah, I think the psychological benefits are huge, like we've talked about peace of mind, confidence, and freedom.
And those are not just buzzwords. Those are real tangible benefits.
Absolutely. They can really transform your relationship with money and just your overall well-being.
Yeah, let's unpack those a bit further. When you talk about peace of mind in this context, what do you mean?
Well, imagine waking up each morning knowing that you can handle whatever financial curveballs life might throw your way.
Oh, that feels good just thinking about that.
Right. A sudden job loss, unexpected medical expense, a major car repair.
Oh, yeah, those are stressful enough on their own.
Exactly. And when you don't have the financial resources to cope, that stress just multiplies tenfold.
So it's not just about having the money, it's about having the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're prepared.
Precisely. It's like having a safety net that allows you to navigate those challenges without feeling completely overwhelmed.
And that peace of mind then frees up mental and emotional energy that you can direct towards other important aspects of your life
Exactly, like your relationships, your health, your passions.
instead of constantly being weighed down by those financial anxieties.
Exactly. It's about freeing up your mental space to focus on the things that truly matter.
And what about confidence? How does having an emergency fund boost our confidence, not just in our finances, but in ourselves?
Well, it gives you a sense of control over your financial life.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of circumstances,
Right. Yeah.
you're proactively taking steps to protect yourself and your future.
It's like you're taking charge of your own destiny.
Exactly. You're not living paycheck to paycheck hoping that nothing unexpected will happen. You're prepared.
And that preparedness then spills over into other areas of your life.
Absolutely. It gives you the confidence to make decisions big and small without being held back by fear.
It's almost like having a secret weapon knowing you've got your own back.
Exactly. You've got this.
You mentioned freedom as another key benefit. What do you mean by that?
Well, financial freedom is incredibly liberating. It opens up possibilities that might have seemed out of reach before.
Okay, so like what kind of possibilities are we talking about?
Well, maybe you've always dreamed of starting your own business, going back to school, or traveling the world.
Oh yeah, those are big dreams.
They are. But having that financial cushion makes those dreams feel more attainable, more within reach.
It's like you're no longer tethered to a job you might not love
Yeah.
simply because you're terrified of what would happen if you lost it.
Exactly. It gives you the freedom to pursue your passions without being held back by financial fear.
And it's not just about those big life changes, right?
Yeah.
Having an emergency fund also gives you the freedom to say yes to smaller, spontaneous adventures.
Absolutely, knowing you have that safety net to catch you if things don't go as planned.
Yeah, it's about having the flexibility to enjoy life without constantly worrying about the what ifs.
Exactly. It's about living in the moment.
So I think our listener is starting to grasp the transformative power of having a fully funded emergency fund.
Yeah.
It's not just about the money, it's about the feeling of security, the confidence it brings, and the freedom it unlocks.
It's a complete game changer.
So before we wrap up this deep dive,
Oh.
I want to leave them with one final thought. Imagine for a moment that you have that fully funded emergency fund right now.
Okay.
It's there, ready and waiting. How does that make you feel? What opportunities suddenly feel within reach? What anxieties fade away?
That's a powerful visualization, I'd add. How would it change your relationship with money, your daily decision making?
Oh, that's a good one.
Would you walk a little taller, breathe a little easier?
These are such important questions to consider because ultimately building an emergency fund isn't just about checking a box on your financial to-do list.
It's about something much bigger.
It's about changing your relationship with money and unlocking a whole new level of possibility and peace of mind.
It's about taking control of your financial future.
So to our listener, take that first step, calculate your emergency fund target, explore the strategies we've discussed, and get ready to experience the incredible sense of security and freedom that comes with knowing you've got this.
You've got this until next time. Keep diving deep and keep exploring